All right, so let's jump in and create our project. So once Android Studio is open, we get past that splash screen, we're going to select New Project. Seems like a good place to start. And we're going to make sure we have the phone or tablet selected. And then we're going to choose Empty Activity. And an empty activity is just a screen with very little extra add-ons added. So no, we're not building it from a template or things that are already created on our behalf. It's an empty activity, and an activity is synonymous with one of our screens. So we'll make several activities throughout the course of this series of videos. So now I'm going to click on Next. Seems like a good thing to do. And then here is where we choose our location. So we're going to drill down. I'm going to choose Desktop, and on my desktop I'm going to create a segue folder and click on OK. Make sure that your path says segue folder, so it does. So I'm in the right area here. Now I can select OK. And so now that I have the right location, I'm going to give this a name. We'll call it segue. Want to make sure that you have Java selected. This is also available in Kotlin, which is a more succinct version of Java, but we're going to choose Java. And then for your minimum SDK, you can click and choose the different versions that you're targeting. If you're not sure which one to target, do I do the most recent one or do I do an earlier version? This little informational piece lets you know that you'll be compatible with 89% of the devices out there, because just because it's newest and greatest doesn't mean all the phones are running that particular release. Here's a good selection that I clicked on that help you choose, and this gives you an idea of what do I want to target. So this has a very high reach in the marketplace, so I'm choosing the Nougat. Obviously the most current release is not quite available to all the phones that are out there, so this gives you the ability to choose which release do you want to target in your particular app. So I'm going to choose this one. Alright, so I feel like I'm good here, and we're going to click on Finish. And we will wait for it to load. Okay, so a couple of things from here. Right now it's selected the project, and it's still loading. So I'm going to put this on pause while it finishes loading. And I can see it's loading because this right here. Okay. So once it finished loading, then I get this. Obviously my project has been created for me. You do have a couple things to different. You have different options here. So I have an Android drop down. You can select, or if its project is selected, depends on which came up by default. You'll notice that it looks different. And if I look in my segue folder, this is how that project is laid out. So this is exactly how it looks in my hard drive. However, if I choose App, if I choose the Android app, then it's going to lay it out in a way that looks a little cleaner. It's a little bit easier for me to navigate. It's a little bit more organized, human friendly. So that's the difference between what's going on there. All right, so what we're going to do then is we'll examine some of these other folders at a later point. I'm just going to dig down into, we have a RES folder. That stands for resources. So I'm going to click on this drop down, and I'm going to go into the layout. So in our layout is where we're seeing our first activity that was created on our behalf. So I'm going to double click on that. So layout is where all of our activities or the screens that we build are going to be stored. So this is where I'm going to navigate. And there's already an activity created on my behalf with the Hello World on it. So let's get sort of acquainted with what we have going on here. We're going to get a small introduction to some of the little choices and layout that we have in front of us. So first of all, let's look up at this little icon here. If you click on this icon, depending on what might have come up for you by default, you have two different views of as we create this project. One is a blueprint. Let me make this wider, hopefully, so you can see it. One is a blueprint, and one is a design. And so the idea behind the blueprint is just that. It's a more abstract view of something that we might be creating colors and that kind of a thing. And so this is an abstract view of our design. So sometimes that's helpful to look at the blueprint version so we're not distracted by all the colors and so forth on our design view. But we like seeing the design view because that's what our project is going to look like ultimately. So you can toggle between design view, blueprint view, or both. So I'm going to go back to the design view. All right, so now let's look at this left-hand side here. We have a palette which contains all of the widgets, the things that we can drag onto our activity. Or let me also look down here at the component tree. So in the component tree, this is what's the right word? Overview, or a visual, and a textual visual, there's my words I'm looking for, of all of the components that I have on my activity. And what you'll notice is, for example, we have, if I click on AB text view, hello world, we can see that it selects this widget, this text widget that's already on here. And what you also see is, if we look at our palette here, for example, let me go to text. You'll see that they've done a very good job at matching these little icons with the widget that's on there. So it really helps you get a good visual of what is it that I've clicked on. What is this thing? Well, this thing is based on the icon AB, okay, and then it tells you that it's a text view widget. So if we look at this one, constraint layout, so that's a layout, and there is our icon that matches the constraint layout. So it all matches, if that helps you kind of determine what you're looking at. Now let's start with layouts. Layout is the container for the widgets and the items that we're putting on our activity. We're using constraint layout, and we'll see what that is. I've asked you guys to do some research about different layouts, such I think you did linear layout and you did relative layout. So here's your layouts. Let's see, so let's look at our, let's go to the text. So we have a text view, and that's showing up on here. So also, I think I showed this, but I meant not have. Remember that you can click on an item here in the component tree, which will also highlight that widget here in the activity. So now let me draw your attention to the attributes, which is over on the right hand side. So whatever item you have selected is going to be context sensitive, and those are the attributes that will be showing up here on the right hand side. So if I don't have, so now I'm currently selected the constraint layout because I'm on the background here. That's the container for all of my widgets. Then these are the attributes for that container. I'm going to go back to my text view, and we're going to look at our attributes. So you always want to, first of all, give an attribute an ID, because that's how we'll be able to access this widget when we write our Java code for this particular widget. So we're going to give it a unique ID. I'm going to give it text title. So for me, it's helpful to put the type of widget, whether it be a button or those kinds of things, in front of the name I want to give it. Because now when I look at it in my Java code, it's going to be very obvious that this is the text title as opposed to a button. So we're going to give it an ID. And then if we scroll through our attributes, the way that it's laid out is, first of all, you have your declared attributes, and that's exactly that. It's attributes that are listed down below, but they already have values to them. And so we don't have to sort through null values. Here's the ones that already have values that we may or may not want to change. For example, at the moment, we can see that the text has hello world in it. There it is. So we could do something like segue application, because that's really what we're doing here. And then I can see that that changes down here. So there is a warning here, and we'll talk about that in the next video. See how it's orange, and I can see here a warning, and I'm going to deal with that next. But I want to just keep focused on this attributes panel for now. There's a layout. We're also going to talk about constraints. So this is something that we'll touch bases here in a little bit. I'm going to collapse that. The common attributes, so this is just that, common attributes. So they're trying to organize the attributes to make it a little bit easier to find, or you can come down to all attributes, which, as you can guess, has all of the attributes that are available for the particular widget that you have selected. All right, so far we've talked about just getting our project started and the overall, just kind of an introduction to our editor here, so where we can find things and work our way through it. So in the next video, we're going to address this little warning message and something called strings XML.